Welcome to Extracurricular. I'm your co-host, Eddie Geller.
And I'm your other co-host, Stephanie Vanos.
Yes, and?
I am a school board member for Orange County Public Schools, but here I am unofficially.
Wow, caught you slipping.
I was a little confused whether we were starting the real part or the intro part.
Well, it's all the real part. All of this is real.
Okay, well, continue on with your spiel then.
Happy Mother's Day.
Oh, thank you.
How does it feel?
To be a mother?
Sure.
Wonderful and tiring. And it's confusing. It's complex.
I'll never know.
That's true. You never will. No, being a mother is the best part of my life. It's amazing. And I love my girls and I love being a mom.
I was telling you about this off mic, but there was a wonderful interview with Bob Odenkirk, star of Better Call Saul, but for comedy heads like me, one of the co-creators of Mr. Show with Bob and Dave, incredible sketch comedian. And he was being interviewed on the podcast. This was a New York Times interview, and asking him about his biggest accomplishments. And he said he felt odd because he feels like his biggest accomplishment is raising a young child and that he will never do anything beyond that, which is both like sweet, but the way he presented it is maybe a little sad that he's already passed his greatest accomplishment. I don't know. What do you think about that?
That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I agree. It's definitely, the most important thing that I've ever done. Mm-hmm. And also the most satisfying, and also I would say the most, like I said, it's complex. There's so many different feelings and parts to it, and it's exhausting and lovely all at the same time. But, it's amazing.
Well, that's beautiful. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Steph, I have to admit something.
Yes.
I missed our anniversary. Not our anniversary. I'm looking at you as me and you anniversary, but the anniversary of this podcast. We are over a year old.
Oh my gosh. How did we miss that?
I don't know. Someone wasn't paying attention.
There's been a lot going on.
Yeah. We did miss a couple weeks. I think it actually might have happened during our little mini hiatus. How does it feel having done this for a year?
I think it's great. I think we've had such great conversations with people and gotten to know people more and just been able to understand issues better, which I love. How about you? How are you feeling?
I feel great about it. I've loved these conversations that we've had. I love what we've learned. I know I talk every time we have a guest on the show. We have such a great guest, an incredible guest. And it's always true. By the way, we don't have a guest today. It's just mano y mano in case someone was waiting for us to intro a guest. But there are some guests that still stick in my mind. The students we've had, Hope and Brady and Lou, Daryl Parrott, who's fighting for his son's memory and to get laws changed here in Florida. And we've had some great elected officials.
Jose Camboa, I think, too.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Really incredible. So I think I feel so fortunate to be doing this with you, my dear. And I'm excited for another year of greatness on the pod. Who are we excited to have this next year?
We'll find out. We've already sent some feeler messages out there into the world, so we'll see. I'm excited though. We have a good lineup.
I'm very excited too. We have some great ideas, some great guests coming, and yeah, it's been a wonderful year, and I'm so glad you do this with me. Okay, after all that preamble, there's a lot of preamble. I do always, from the bottom of my heart, ask that folks do subscribe if they are not already subscribed, to rate us, rate this podcast, rate Extracurricular. Steph, what can they rate us?
5 stars only.
5 stars only. If you do not rate us 5 stars, you are anti-mother. So just know that. And we're going to get it back into this. Follow us on Instagram. Extracurricular_podcast. We're back, baby. I know last week I said we might not be ever on Instagram again because my phone broke, but we got back on. So we're posting again, and you can follow us.
I don't know how you did that, but I'm so glad you did.
I have some connections, was able to get in touch with some folks at Instagram, and they helped me reset the account, because if you were not here for my 45-minute diatribe last week, my phone completely died, and I was locked out of our Instagram account, but I am now locked back in, if you will, to our Instagram account. And I have a new phone, and you have a new phone.
Well, because I got scared because my phone has been, really my phone is so old. Every time I take it out and give it to someone to take a picture, they're like, "What year is this phone from?" But I love it because it was small. I think it was like an 11 or 12 mini or something like that. So anyway, but it had been really slow and it wasn't charging and it was getting super hot. And so I thought, okay, I don't want to lose my information in this phone. So
what happened to you, or what happened to me to happen to you?
It was a lesson and I learned from it.
Well, we got to learn from our mistakes, and it's very important. So congratulations on your new phone. Congratulations to us to be back on Instagram. Now people can just hit that like button all they want. I got to post some more content. It's time consuming creating content.
It is. Always got to do more.
So we are recording this on Mother's Day, though we had a wonderful interaction with someone today who was not a mother. While we were going to get coffee, talk about a person about town. Who did we run into this morning, Steph?
Oh, we were at one of our favorite coffee shops, maybe my favorite coffee shop. And
you should name the coffee shop.
Oh,
so they get some shine.
Easy Luck.
Easy Luck
Coffee on South Street. Is it South or Anderson? South. Okay. I always get confused. One's One Direction.
You can look. You can Google it.
Yeah, South Street.
Not you, Steph. The listener can Google.
You. And we ran into our congressman. Congressman Maxwell Frost was also getting coffee this morning.
Great guy. I know we talk about running it. We've talked on multiple podcasts about running into him, and we've talked about it multiple times. Previous guests of the pod talk about former great guest Congressman Maxwell Frost. Just so wonderful to run into him, and he's always just such a wonderful gentleman and human being. And I was actually telling him about how I'm taking drum lessons, and he seemed incredibly jazzed, no pun intended, that I was taking drum lessons. And he's like, "We should get together and jam." And I was like, "Whoa, not quite yet. I'm still just learning how to hit the sticks one after another." But it was very kind. But you're doing a roundtable with Congressman Frost tomorrow.
I am, yes. They are having some individuals from Washington, D.C. come into town, and we are just talking about the impacts of some of the immigration laws that have been changed and instituted in the last year or so, and its impact on the Central Florida area. And so I will be talking about its impact on Orange County Public Schools. Can
you give maybe just like a sentence or two about what kind of stuff you're going to maybe say?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big, as everyone knows, in our area, we've had a decline in student enrollment, and that is the result of many things. Declining birth rate, I would say housing and affordability issues, immigration, and also the taxpayer-funded voucher program. But immigration actually accounts for about 40% of our student loss in the last year, which is wild. It's about almost 2,600 students, and 1,200 of them from Venezuela. So huge impact on our school system, but more importantly, a huge impact on these children. Ugh. Are they here and not going to school? Have they left? The opportunity that they had to attend Orange County Public Schools, and now just unable to do so because of these laws and fear, based on what's happening in our area. So really sad. And this is impacting real people.
Well, I'm glad you're talking about that, and I'm glad you've been talking about it. So thank you to Congressman Frost for inviting you to speak about that. In less serious news, though very heartwarming and maybe in some ways serious, your eldest went to her senior prom last night. How did that feel for you?
Oh, she did. It was so fun. She had, we just had the most fun pictures. Her friends were all dressed up, and I loved that each of their personalities was reflected in what they were wearing, and in the pictures that we took. And shout out to Jade's mom, who is a professional and just took such great pictures of them. But it was fun. It was really fun, and I think like half of the girls in there like thrifted their dresses, so it was also fun to see what they found, and so it was great.
Are you a thrifter?
I am not a thrifter. I walk in, I'm just overwhelmed. I can't make sense of anything, and I can't find anything good. My daughter goes in and she finds like all of the gems in, record time.
Can I tell you a little funny story? I know this is delaying us from get to the substance of the podcast, but it is related.
All right, go for it.
I was at a thrift store recently at a Goodwill because I was buying a prop for a comedy show. And so it was an old clock. Like imagine like not a grandfather clock because those things are big, but a small version of that, maybe, a foot tall, but it had some age and had some character. And the bit in the comedy show was the clock was going to be destroyed. And so, but as I'm going to the register, this woman was taken with my clock and was like, "Oh my God, what an incredible find you have here." And she was like asking me about like why I picked it. And I opened it up and I was like, I don't think it works anymore. She's like, "Oh, that's not a problem. You'll be able to get this fixed in no time." And literally spent 3 minutes remarking about this incredible find and what a wonderful thing it is that I have this clock. And all I can think is like, woman, I'm going to slam this clock on the ground in the middle of a comedy show. But I felt bad saying that to her because I felt like she was vicariously getting this clock through me. And so I could not break her heart.
Well, I don't think it's a requirement that finds like that from thrift stores have to work.
No, I don't think so either. But she was very excited. So
I know my daughter once came home with it was a clock, but it was also a dun-dun-dun cassette player.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that thing.
And so did it work well? No, it worked a little bit. But when she heard the songs not on cassette, she was like, "Oh, this is that song." I couldn't really tell.
It was very charming. Both the actual cassette player and her bringing that home and playing. I don't even remember what tape she was playing. It wasn't REM, but I want to say it was like REM or something.
She like Kate Bush and Bangles.
Oh, yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
So anyway. Well, good for you. So also, speaking of shows, you did a show on Friday night. Thank
you. Yes, it was a wonderful show. It's the show I do in Tampa. I know I've done shows here in Orlando lately, but this is the once a month show. They didn't do it for a couple months and I wasn't there for a month, but Salute and Happy Days in Tampa. The host, storyteller, this woman, Karen Kress, who's the senior director of transportation and planning in the Tampa Downtown Partnership. She was just absolutely wonderful, had so much personality and had some great stories. And we had a lot of fun with it. Improv translates terribly when you retell. That being said, what was like a funny scene or moment that you were thinking of? Not that it has to include me, but if you pick something that doesn't have me, I'm going to be hurt.
Pressure's on. Well, first of all, I thought, because she's an engineer, right? I mean, urban planner, are they engineers? I don't know. There were tons of engineers in the audience. So I was like, oh, okay, this will be interesting. But one of the things I appreciated, I feel like she spent a great deal of time talking about whether she lived like above the dam or below the dam. And it was like there was a lot of conversation about that and owls, which I don't know, just kind of cracked me up. But I loved one of the scenes you did with I think it was like the improv bus.
Oh, that we did this scene in which I was like an improv. It was a little meta, but I was an improv performer trying to do improv on a bus, and it was not going very well. And then my friend Danny, who was in the scene, I was like, well, and he was playing like just a rider, patron of the bus. And I was like, well, why don't you try doing improv? And then he gets up and starts doing improv and everyone loves it. And then he came up with a character called Mississippi Jim, which like there's nothing to that character, but the name Mississippi Jim is still stuck with me. And I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, it was funny. And you got to have your anger on full display in the scene, which was very fun.
I was very angry in the scene. Do you think do I get that angry in life, do you think?
Never. I think you save it for your shows.
Yeah, I do really. I do save it for the stage. But hey, look, we got to all have our outlets. So, this is an angry time in the world and we need our outlets. Okay. Let's get to the heart of this show. Not that our intro is not the heart, but I want to talk about really two things today. And the main thing I want to talk about is this was big news this past week. And we'll get to your part in it. But there is a lawsuit filed by the Florida Education Association against the state of Florida. And let me just read a quote from Fox 13. And we're going to talk about why this lawsuit matters and involvement from one of the hosts of this podcast. But let me read from Fox 13 real quick. Florida's largest teachers union is taking the state to court, arguing its rapidly growing school voucher program is draining resources from public schools and violating the state constitution. The Florida Education Association filed the lawsuit Tuesday, claiming the state is failing in its duty to provide, quote, uniform, efficient, safe, secure, and high-quality system of free public schools, end quote, by redirecting billions with a B, in public education dollars to private and charter schools. Another end quote. I don't know if I read that wrong. All right, that is the quote from the article. So wouldn't you know it, this giant lawsuit, which is a big deal, been written up all over, talked about a lot in education circles. Wouldn't you know it, that one of the plaintiffs in this very case happens to be one Stephanie Vanos, parent in Orange County, Florida. Board member Vanos, would you indulge me for just a moment? We'll go into a deep dive, but can you just give a brief-ish overview of what this lawsuit is?
Okay, well, first of all, you referred to me as board member Vanos, so I want to stop you there because on this podcast, I am not board member Vanos, and as part of this lawsuit, I am not board member Vanos.
That's a great clarification.
I joined this lawsuit in my capacity only as a parent and as a taxpayer in Orange County. So just want to be very clear on that. But yeah, I mean, I think to summarize, this lawsuit is basically saying the same rules should apply to all publicly funded schools. That's really what this lawsuit is about. And it's saying that to the extent that the same rules are not followed by all publicly funded schools, then it is unconstitutional. And the request is that the funding, the diversion of funding to these schools basically be stopped because charter schools, taxpayer-funded voucher program do not follow the same uniform requirements and safety requirements that are specifically articulated in the Florida Constitution.
That's beautiful. Well, first of all, thank you for fighting for our public schools, and thank you for joining on to this lawsuit. Let's talk about, how did you end up joining this lawsuit? How did this come about?
Yes, I mean, I have been saying for years the taxpayer-funded voucher program is unconstitutional. I truly believe that. Bush v. Holmes was a Supreme Court case that I believe 2006 or 2007 pretty much set out that this diversion of funds to these private schools is unconstitutional, and yet it really didn't seem to stop lawmakers from continuing to build this taxpayer-funded voucher program and then significantly expanding it in 2023 with the universal voucher bill. And so, I had been, many of the groups that I was part of, over the years, we had talked about this. And so when I found out that, that this lawsuit was being filed, I joined in. And, there are, do I really want to be part of a lawsuit? I mean, I would say not really. Like, I think there are real issues with our taxpayer-funded voucher program with some of the rules or lack of rules relating to charter schools. I would have much preferred that the Florida legislature address these issues and revise some of the statutes and make the changes that needed to be made, particularly when the Auditor General released its report this past fall, which really laid out all of the misuses and misspendings and just poor accountability within this taxpayer-funded voucher system. The legislatures had that report right in front of them. They had the information right there. They had 3 committee meetings talking about this report. And the House refused to do anything about it. And I would say House leadership. I do want to shout out to Senator Gates, who in the Senate side did create a bill that attempted to at least, remedy some of these issues. And the Senate did pass it, but the House just refused to do anything. And so what choice do we have? I mean, our legislature is not going to do anything. Our governor's not going to do anything. That leaves just regular people with the only option of being a lawsuit.
Okay, so that's wonderful. What does it mean to be a plaintiff? We've actually had a plaintiff in a lawsuit on this show. You were weirdly absent from that show when I interviewed Judy Hayes about her lawsuit. But what does this mean? Are you at the courthouse every day with a sign yelling at folks? Are you deposing? Are you pulling people off the street and deposing them? What does it mean to be a plaintiff?
So this is kind of one way to think about it. When you have a lawsuit, you have people who are entitled to seek relief, and it's called standing, right? And so in this lawsuit, there's various plaintiffs who have various relationships to the education system and to the funding. And, the hope is that some, that all, or at least some of them will have the standing to bring this lawsuit. We courts can decide any range of things, right? Who knows what the courts will decide? So you want to have the best chance to bring a lawsuit by sort of having a variety of different plaintiffs. So there's some parents, I believe there's a teacher, taxpayers, small business owner. One of the plaintiffs utilize it, and many of the plaintiffs, their children go to public schools in various counties in the state of Florida. One of the plaintiffs does receive the taxpayer-funded voucher. So that person is also part of it. Because, the concern is really that our children in the state of Florida are not getting the education that they deserve because there's not this uniform system followed for publicly funded schools. And that doesn't just mean public school students. That could also mean charter school students. That could also mean students who are part of the taxpayer funded voucher program.
Gotcha. All right. I want to dig into what some of the heart of this lawsuit is about and what they're alleging. But can I ask you just personally as a plaintiff, as a mom, it is Mother's Day, so this is a good question to ask. Like when you think about like just from your heart, put the lawyer side, a part of you aside, like what do you think about the harms to kids and your kids about this system and the chipping away of public education in Florida?
Well, I think there's a huge harm that comes, first of all, just from the diversion of these public taxpayer dollars, because as you know, this $5 billion plus dollars are diverted away from our public schools, where the vast majority of Floridian students go to school. That harms our children. That harms the ability of schools to hire the most qualified teachers and to retain, the best teachers.
Which, by the way, is something that was talked about in our episode with Hope and Brady, specifically, like not being, this is obviously a thing, but specifically when we're thinking about like these individual harms, teachers that can't stick around or won't stick around. that was something they specifically brought up.
Yeah, Florida's 50th in terms of average teacher pay. And I think I read 60% of school staff makes below $35,000. Which is
unconscionable.
Exactly. And also the other point is when, through this funding formula that we have, for example, voucher schools will always be fully funded. And if the amount of money allocated to the districts, isn't enough, then the district gets a proration of the per student funding, but the taxpayer funded voucher school does not.
That's
so
wild.
They are also impacted because as the money kind of runs down, public schools take the hit, taxpayer funded voucher schools don't.
Okay, can we talk about you gave a great overview of this case, and I read from the quote that Florida is that the state is failing to provide a, quote, uniform, efficient, safe, secure, and high quality system of free public schools. So can you just talk about, maybe dig in a little deeper about like what this lawsuit is saying?
Yeah. So this lawsuit is particularly focused on the uniform piece of that and the safe piece of that. There have been other lawsuits since Bush v. Holmes, which has looked at like what does adequate mean, what does efficient mean, and this one's really focused on uniform and safe, those two parts of the Constitution. So, for example, let's look at the taxpayer-funded voucher program. There's not uniform rules. They don't have to follow the same transportation requirements. They don't have to have the same, safe school requirements. They don't have to have the same students, requirements related to students with disabilities. They don't have to have the same class size requirements. These are just a few of the examples. And then if you look at charter schools, they don't have to follow the same rules regarding their building safety. They don't have the same instructional rules. That's true for both charters and vouchers. Charters have more leeway. What else? They don't have to necessarily teach some of the same requirements that the public schools do, that the traditional public schools do. So you have these different requirements that the different schools have to follow, and different standards. There's also, and this was always a big issue for me, there's different requirements with respect to transparency. Our public schools have to strictly follow the Florida Sunshine Laws and public records laws. Charter schools have to follow some parts of that, but they don't have to follow all parts of that. And taxpayer-funded voucher schools have no transparency requirements, with respect to the Sunshine Law or open records. So we don't know what's really happening with our money. We don't really know how we're spending it, and we really have no way to find out. And so it's all of these. It's essentially there's a an ununiform system, an ununiform or non-uniform, a non-uniform system of schools. And that is violating the Florida Constitution because it does require that all publicly funded schools are uniform. And listen, I'm not here saying that, hey, all private schools and all charter schools should have to follow the rules that public schools are following. I actually think we need more flexibility. So maybe let's look at the rules. Let's have a basic set of requirements, a basic set of standards that voucher schools have to follow, that homeschool has to follow, that charter schools have to follow, that public schools have to follow. We all have to follow these basic standards and requirements and rules regarding transparency. And then we move forward from there. So I'm not saying let's have it as restrictive as public schools have it. But also, let's not have it as unregulated as some of these other schools have. Let's just agree that the same rules should apply to everyone. And what I appreciate about this lawsuit is just common sense. I mean, if you asked someone, how should we be regulating schools that receive public dollars, they would say, yeah, there should be a basic set of standards that everyone has to abide by. Because otherwise, when people make the argument of like, well, there's just more competition now. Well, it's not fair competition when some schools get less money than others, when some schools have more requirements than others. If you want a true competition, then make it a true competition and make sure that we're all following the same rules and the same guidelines and the same accountability requirements.
Well said. And also, I don't know if like trying to out competition each other is like what we want out of public education, but your point is well made. Would you, I feel like I'm lobbing a softball here, but I just want to put a finer point on it. Would you say this lawsuit is a really big deal in the world of public education in Florida?
Absolutely, because it impacts the way that our schools are funded. And people may, it's almost honestly, whatever complaint or concern people have about our schools, almost every single one can be traced back to funding. Mm-hmm. And so, I know there are some people that, have said in the past, well, just focus on what's happening in your schools. Well, the things that you're complaining about, class sizes, discipline, not having enough people on campus to, help deal with issues, not having this program or that program. Guess what? All of that comes from funding. If schools had the funding that they needed, they would be able to better support all students. And I think our public schools are doing the most with the least amount of money. And I think they're doing some things really, really well. But most of the complaints that I hear truly just come down to not having the funding that they need to provide everything that they know how to provide and that they can provide.
One of my favorite phrases that I can never remember which podcast I heard it on, but it has stuck with me, is a guest on, I feel like it was like Chris Hayes' podcast, talking about what is the cause of the cause of the cause of the cause. And that's what comes to mind when you talk about funding, like all these different things, like let's get down to it. What is causing these things? We are not properly funded for public schools in this state, and it just causes cracks and fissures everywhere.
You're right. And not only does it cause cracks and fissures, it also leads us down these rabbit holes that at the end of the day are really not productive and not going to find us what we need. And I'll give you an example. I know that many districts are, struggling with, for example, healthcare, right? Healthcare benefits for their employees. And so you have these school board members trying to, understand like, okay, what, trying to like understand healthcare, like understand health insurance, which is really not in their purview. But again, we're going down this rabbit hole of trying to like solve this problem when really the problem is we just need more funding to be able to better provide better salaries, better bonuses, better benefits to our teachers. I mean, that's the real issue. It's not that we should be sending our, our district staff or our school board members down these, I don't know if you know what they've done, these paths to like try to become an expert in an area that is really not related to what they're doing because we're so desperate for money.
Right. And I've brought this up before. It's especially infuriating in a state that has money. We are not, hard up for finding revenue sources, but these are deliberate choices to attack public education and prop up a system of private education. But we could absolutely be funding our schools better. We could be paying teachers what they deserve, et cetera, et cetera. So just the leadership in this state continues to enrage, confound, et cetera, et cetera. So let's talk about next steps. lawsuits notoriously get resolved quickly, right?
I wish sometimes. I wish.
Yeah. So what are the next steps? How might this resolve? What kind of timeline are people looking at? And let me throw out there, are there going to be any, sometimes a lawsuit gets filed and that causes certain actors to behave differently, whether it's the legislature or something like that. So I'll throw out there whether you think this lawsuit might also cause the legislature to act differently. Is that an okay question? I threw a lot at you.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think the next step is the defendants in the lawsuit, which is the members of the State Board of Education in their official capacity will respond. And the reason that they were chosen as defendants is because they really administer the funding. They make the decisions about where the funding goes, or they actually administer the financial part. So they'll provide their response, and I'm sure there will be, many motions, but it will not be quick, I'm sure. And that's okay, because that's just the part of the process. Yeah. But again, the alternative is to do nothing.
Yeah.
And so I'm just not okay with that. I think we need to be this is a fight for public education. And if you hear, we had members of our Orange County delegation speaking at many different events, kind of their takeaways from this past session. I've attended several of those recaps, and one thing they are all very clear on is public education is absolutely under attack.
Yeah.
I don't know if people fully realize that. I think people sometimes get caught up in, I don't like this decision that the school district or the school board made, or I don't like that decision, rather than focusing on the big picture, which is we're under attack.
Yeah.
And just doing nothing is just not an option. And I do want to know that I did everything I could to fight for it. So in answer to your question, the defendants will have to file some sort of response. We'll see what that looks like. And it will probably take a long time to fully resolve. And, if this does put pressure on the legislature to act, that would be great. I don't know that it will. I hope it does.
Yeah.
I do. I would love to see some action in the House. And again, really grateful for the Senate this year. I'm happy to say on here, grateful for the Senate, grateful for Senator Gates for really trying to push this along and make some much needed changes. And, in the meantime, we'll see. We'll just kind of see what happens.
Let me pose something to you that I have mentioned before. What if, and I'm not making this political, but what if there's new leadership in the state come, 2027? And do you, no one can tell the future, but I'm sure this crosses other people's minds. What if there's Democratic leadership? Does this lawsuit go away? I don't know. Curious.
That would be, that's, I would encourage everyone, as we're coming upon elections in August and November of 26 of this year, to, and I actually brought this up at my town hall last week or the week before. I don't know. The days all flow together. That make this be a question. Make this be a question that you are asking every candidate who's running for office, whether it's for the Florida House, whether it's for the Florida Senate, whether it's for the governor. Ask them where they stand on public education. Ask them where they stand on local control of public education. Ask them where they stand on the taxpayer-funded voucher program. Ask them where they stand on charter schools. Ask them what they will do. Do they believe that the base student allocation should at least keep up with inflation? I hope so.
Yeah.
Minimum. Do they believe
keep up with gas prices at least?
I know it. Do they believe that our, money for our teacher salary increases should be substantial, and we should be aiming to be, I would say, at least in the top quarter of average teacher salary in the nation? I think these questions need to be really asked, and I think, look for answers. Make public education a priority. And the way we make that a priority is by asking the questions, posing the questions, putting pressure on our candidates, making sure they understand that we care and that this is important to people. And again, public education is not a partisan issue. There, Democrats and Republicans and no party affiliation, all of those families send their students to public schools.
Beautifully put. Okay. Last question. Do you worry that this puts a target on your back, on OCPS's back? That must cross your mind when putting your name on something like this. Even if you're not, to clarify, as you did, this is not in any way an official capacity, but you are an official and you do work at the 8th largest school district in the nation.
My goal is really focused on what can I do to help in this really battle for public education. And so that's really where I'm focused. Like, might it? Maybe. I don't know. But I also know that to just sit back and, not do whatever I can, for me personally, is just not an option.
Beautiful. Unbothered. That's Stephanie Vanos. Okay. I want to switch topics to something related. Well, I should say related in the world of Florida education, though we're not related to the lawsuit, that also got a lot of press this week. And another moment of feeling shame about Florida's education system. And let me read the headline. Reading a lot of news articles. Shouts to journalists and news organizations. Please subscribe to your local newspaper. Shouts the Orlando Sentinel and Tampa Bay Times. I'm still subscribed over there. They do great work over there. Okay, from the New York Times. Florida creates a more conservative U.S. history course to rival AP. Okay, and I'm going to read the first few paragraphs to kind of give an overview. Florida has created a new American history course that advances a more conservative interpretation of the nation's history. It focuses on the Protestant faith of the founders, argues that the U.S. Constitution is an anti-slavery document, news to me, and recommends a textbook written explicitly to build patriotism. The class, which will roll out as a pilot program this fall, is meant to serve as an alternative to Advanced Placement U.S. History, a behemoth that reached more than 500,000 high school students last year. Two more paragraphs. Many historians and educators say AP U.S. History is well balanced and avoids any single ideological interpretation of the American story. But Governor Ron DeSantis has waged a 3-year battle against the College Board, the organization that runs the AP program. His administration has argued AP courses lean too far to the left in how they discuss race and gender in particular. I just wanted to we can talk a little bit more through this. I want to get your reactions, either as a parent, as a board member, however you want to react. I just want to get your reaction.
Well, I'm always reacting here on the podcast as a parent and not as a board member,
right.
Or just as a general person.
Okay. But people do know that you're a board member. It's not a secret. We don't hide it.
But, you ever have those conversations with people where, like, if you're the common denominator in like every problem, like, is it really other people or is it you? And that's what I think about when I think about Governor DeSantis and his weird obsession with AP and College Board.
It's so bizarre.
I mean, it's been going on for years, whether it's like the AP psychology or like not wanting to have the AP African American history class. I mean, at some point you're like, I think this is about you. I don't think this is that College Board and AP is, I don't know, like too ideological or pushing some kind of agenda. I think the problem might be you.
Yeah. As we are in the wake of, I know we touched last week on the gutting of the Voting Rights Act and now the repeal as well of the ballot initiative in Virginia, which was going to, voter approved, make a new map for more Democratic seats and bringing this back. But this attempt, and so the net of that is just the absolute like erasure of Black representation, minority representation. And we are just continuing. This is Florida's version. I mean, I know this is a distinct project from gerrymandering states, but this overall project to just erase Black history and that struggle. And to be clear, that from what we've read about this new course, it doesn't totally, it's not talking about slavery, but in general, we are doing our best to erase, or these attempts are doing the best to erase our past and our shameful past. Not that we need to feel shame day after day, but we need to learn from the mistakes of this country and erase Black representation here in America and go back to a Jim Crow era. It all feels a piece with each other, and it is just, it's tough. I think we are putting, a little bit of a, not tongue in cheek spin on it, but a just like roll our eyes take on this. But also, and I know you feel this exact same way, it is monstrous. I think to erase what we've done and to try and rewrite history, it is galling to me. And so I'm just in this mind space. So I just wanted to articulate that.
Well, no, I appreciate that. And I also think when it comes to APUSH, which is AP US History, I mean, I'd be curious if you asked the parents of people whose students take APUSH, whether they're more concerned about APUSH curriculum or making sure they have an APUSH teacher that's properly paid,
right?
Which they care more about, and that their school is funded, or is it the APUSH curriculum that they have a problem with? And my guess is the vast majority of parents whose children are participating in APUSH are much more worried about the funding coming to their school than they are about the curriculum being, I don't even know, it's used in every state in the nation.
Right. Well, okay. So I want to get to the part at the end of this article, is that saying, and again, quoting from the New York Times piece, it may be a map for other conservative states. Florida created the class as part of a new suite of accelerated courses known as FACT, Florida Advanced Courses and Tests. Florida has often set the pace for Republican education policy during the Trump era, so curriculum could serve as a model for other states to follow. It is possible that states outside of Florida could eventually choose to administer FACT courses and exams, establishing a sort of red state competitor to the College Board. I mean, again, I'm again thinking of our conversation with Hope and Brady about when education in Florida deteriorates in a way that becomes less meaningful in competition with other states. Like if you have studied from the FACT course, this DeSantis created Florida course, versus other states who have like real AP tests and real AP courses, we are degrading the quality of education in Florida. I know they don't care, but it's still worth pointing out and still maddening.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great point. I mean, there are students in our state who would love to go to school in a different state, if they're moving on in that way. And even if there's students that are not moving on to college, students still deserve to have a high quality education, whether or not they're going to college or not. And I look at this FACT, whatever it is, and then I look at the CLT, which is the new classical, I don't even know what it stands for, some test basically that students can take in place of the SAT or the ACT that would allow them to get bright futures and it would count for admission into Florida universities and colleges. Meanwhile, this test is, I believe it has, most of the math is not even high school level math. I mean, it's just like clearly not the same caliber as the SAT or ACT, but it's pushed by the state of Florida, as now an alternative as a graduating test and admissions and bright futures. It's just part of this whole weird, I don't know, framework, I guess, that the state is setting up with these, new advanced studies tests and now these new, these new courses. It's mind-boggling, and I can't imagine why anyone would choose that path and make their child, less competitive and less knowledgeable.
Hear, hear. All right. Well, things as always in the state. Well, not as always, but in the recent past here in Florida. Tough on the education front. But what I do want to say is, and hopefully your bravery communicates this, is what we can do is fight back. What we can do is use our voice. Not everyone can be a plaintiff in a lawsuit, but we can, as you said, we can ask our elected officials, we can ask candidates the tough questions, we can educate others about what is going on. And we're going to have an opportunity at the ballot box this year to vote for public education. So what I want to say is this stuff is tough to swallow and it is upsetting, but we are here and we are fighting back and we are saying this is a priority and this matters to us. And we are going to articulate what these harms are and articulate what a true working system looks like.
I love it. We're doing what we can and everyone can play a part.
Well, you are playing a big part. I am hitting record on the podcast machine so that people can hear your voice, but you should be proud of yourself.
Well, I don't know what to say to that. Thank you, I guess. But also truly, I just want to shout out. And I know that, some of the House representatives in the Florida House, we called them out earlier, but I do want to highlight that there are some amazing members in the Florida House that speak out regularly about what is happening in public education and higher ed education. And I so appreciate what they do. I know their voices aren't always listened to because they're in the minority, but it just speaks to, what we need to do. I don't care what party your person is in, it's ask them, where do they stand on these issues? And if they stand for public education and they stand for properly funding it and they stand for uniform standards across all education types, then those are the kind of people we need in office.
And if you have an extra moment with them, ask them about where they stand on strawberry milk, because we deserve answers. We deserve answers, and we deserve our thirst quenched with strawberry milk.
Very important. Okay.
Well, Stephanie Vanos, thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you for being on this podcast. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Eddie.
All right. Have a good one.